All right, welcome in. This is going to be a fun episode on the Front Row Podcast with Coach Mark Gottfried, and I am really pumped today because I've got a guy that I've gotten to know really well, and I admire a ton. So, Bentley Evans, we're going to get into who you are and what you do and all the fun stuff in a minute. But Bentley, man, thank you. Thank you for making the effort to come down and to Newport from L.A.
Come on, man. This is great. It's incredible to be here. You're an incredible guy. The ride out was very nice.
Good.
Smooth. I love it. I love it.
You're in Newport Beach, so come on, man.
Yeah, man. Come on. I mean, Pelican Hill right down the street and all that good stuff, man. I love it.
So for those of you, I'm going to bring you up to speed a bit, and I want to make sure I get everything right. But Bentley Evans has done an amazing job carving his niche in Hollywood as he's kind of done it all. He's done some acting, some producing, some directing, and a lot of writing. Co-produced the original Jamie Foxx show, has a tremendous history with Martin Lawrence. And in an ever-changing kind of Hollywood structure of, through COVID and the writer's strike, and there's just so much going on, to stay kind of at the top of the pile is probably pretty hard. But you've had just an amazing run, man. Congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It has been a hell of a run. It's not over as far as I'm concerned. People come up to me all the time and say, man, this is incredible. You're still doing it? I'm like, well, what am I, a dinosaur or something? Yeah, I'm still doing it. But I love it, man. I wouldn't trade it for the world. The entertainment industry has been very good to me. It's been definitely gratifying. It's something that's become a family business now for me with my kids and my wife and brothers and sisters and my nephew. It's a trip. It's really a cool vibe.
So let's go all the way back, and I think I read, I didn't know this, but because I've kind of known you from being in L.A. when I lived in L.A. a number of years, but born in Oakland, California?
Yeah.
Now, how long were you in Oakland before you came to L.A.?
Not long enough to even remember it.
Yeah.
My parents were based in Oakland. My mother's from Richmond. My father was in West Oakland. And so they hooked up, and all of my brothers and sisters, except for one, was born there in the Bay Area. Yeah, so
you come to L.A. and Westchester High School. When I was coaching at UCLA, I went to Westchester a lot. I knew that school well because we had some basketball players come through there. But and then kind of getting into how does one and how did you get going into writing and acting, and there's so many people that would love to be doing what you do. So how do you kind of navigate that and get going?
It's a fluke, man. Here's the thing. When I was at Westchester High School, I never in a million years thought that I'd be in the entertainment industry. I really wanted to be in the real estate industry because that's what my dad did. And that's what we do. We kind of follow suit with our parents. I had a few friends that were child actors and stuff like that. And I would go on sets with them. One of my good friends was this kid by the name of DeVorier White. Now, DeVorier played the chauffeur in Die Hard. You remember the show?
Yeah. Oh,
okay,
yeah.
Okay. And so I would go on sets with him, and I really, I fell in love with the business, but I didn't want to let on that I was, trying to figure out how to get in. So I would just go and kind of like be a fly on the wall and stuff like that, And so I really, really had a real solid desire to do it. My sister was the theatrical one. She was in all the school plays at Westchester and stuff like that. But I was a little too shy to do it. And back in those days, you kind of got teased a little bit if you want to be in the theater arts program. They'd be like, "You're 6'5", you ain't playing no ball." So I literally I got into the business by way of Robert Townsend. Through his Hollywood Shuffle effort. When he did that movie independently, it was just like he needed so much help, and I was at junior college really doing nothing. And so I went on set of Hollywood Shuffle, and I saw Robert making this movie, and my mind was blown. I fell in love with it, and I said, I got to do this, figure out how to do this for the rest of my life. And so it was suggested to me at that point in time when I started asking questions about the whole business. Robert said, you got to start somewhere. What I would suggest is you start acting. And what I'm going to do for you for you coming and volunteering your time, I'm going to make sure that you get into the Screen Actors Guild. If nothing else, I'm going to get you in SAG, which was an incredible feat at that time. And so that's what he did. He got me in there, and then I kind of had to figure out my way, navigate my way through the business from that point. And I had a lot of help from the Wayans family, the famous Wayans family, and so many other funny people out there that really showed me the way. And so that's kind of how I got in. Now, how I started writing is a whole different, it's a whole different story. I mean, we could talk about it now. It's interesting. I would sit up and watch old TV shows, A Different World, The Cosby Show, and stuff like that in '84, and I was like, I could do that. I could write one of those scripts. And I was working at a music store, Music Plus, and I got a little bit of cash and got myself probably a hot computer off the street. Somebody, and I got a hold of some good software, and I kind of started reading books on how to write. And then I realized the best way to learn how to write is to read scripts, literally. Okay, let me dissect this scene in a movie like The Fugitive. I want to see how that train wreck was really scripted. So I got the script, and I'm reading it, going, oh, this looks nothing like what I saw on the screen, because that wasn't the writer's vision. That's the director of photography's, that's his vision. So I realized you just write it simple and just write it plain and make these paragraphs what they're supposed to be, and the rest will kind of follow. So I just started kind of doing that as a common practice to write anything I saw. Let me write. I started writing songs, anything that I could get out of my head and put on paper. And from that point on, I loved the idea of being a writer. Not so much the acting. The acting was something that was definitely foreign to me. I did it, and I had a niche because I was getting all the basketball roles because I was tall, lanky kid. But I never really loved the whole idea of acting, because I think you got to be a little narcissistic to really want to be an actor. You really do, It's because it's very self-serving. You're kind of going into this fantasy of these characters, and I did it because it was cool, and I hoped to maybe catch a chick or two, But it wasn't because of I was this theatrical major or anything like that. So that's kind of how I got started in it, and then the story goes on and on and on to where I had an arsenal of scripts that were just sitting in my bedroom, not doing anything. And they always say when opportunity knocks, if you're ready for it, then there's a possibility, that there's going to be an answer. And so as the story would go, Martin Lawrence and we're going to a Clipper game, which is a faux pas for me because I'm a Laker fan. But we're going to a Clipper game, and at the time, I think Doc Rivers was still playing for the Clippers, and Charles Smith and all these, and Martin was friends with Charles. And on the way to a Clipper game, Martin starts telling me about HBO and Fox were interested in doing a TV series with him. And he said, now look, we're friends, and if this happens, I don't want you to say, well, my friend didn't hook me up. He didn't look out for me. So I'm giving you the opportunity right now. Tell me what you want to do. If it happens, I'll let you audition. I said, I don't want to audition. If you really want to look out for me, I would like to be a writer on whatever you do. And he laughed at me and said, you don't write? And I said, okay. He was shooting a film at the time. The next day I go down to the set and I take him a stack of scripts. He called me 3 days later and he said, I apologize, bro. I had no idea.
How about that?
Yeah, that's literally how I got his attention, and then he saw to it that the Martin Show creator and producers made sure that they put me in a good position so that I could thrive in the business.
It's interesting, Bentley, that and a lot of the guests I've had on, and I coached a number of years, and I was able to have a lot of fun and success, but there's always people along the way that have helped us. And a lot of times people, they reach a certain level and they have these amazing accomplishments. And it always bothers me sometimes that they then forget kind of who helped them along the way. Because without the help, none of it. We all need a break.
Right.
And it's like Martin or Robert Townsend, or you had people that saw something in you to say, and part of that's probably your character too, but they saw something that said, there's something here, and I want to help this guy, and I can help. And Cedric, the entertainer, I had him, he's my first guest, talked about how Steve Harvey along the way, helped him, opened some doors for him. And without that, maybe he doesn't get those breaks. So I love the way that you kind of volunteer that people along the way helped you.
Yeah, man, definitely. I mean, you can't do it without a team. It's impossible. It's literally impossible. It's having an idea, but then the execution is all about the opportunities that are afforded you. And so I knew that going into it. I've always been a guy that has been big on how my relationships are developed and everything, because I've always been cool, calm, collected. I think that's one of my biggest assets, is that I have patience, the patience of Job. I promise you, very few people can piss me off. I mean, it's literally, I think it's a superpower. I literally just deal with people's bullshit all the time, because I just know that there's some kind of silver lining in there if you just stick around just long enough. And so that's what I was able to do early on in my career, having an understanding that, you have to volunteer your time. Sometimes people are going to talk to you crazy, and you just have to be able to brush it off and go, it's just words, man. It's just words. Sticks and stones for real.
That's right.
Yeah.
And also, Bentley, like when I first met you, and there are people that we come across in life where you just feel like, man, that's just a genuine dude. Like that's just a real, authentic, genuine person. And I'm sure along your path, those guys that helped you, or the Jamie Foxxes and all the rest of the people that have been involved with you, they probably felt that same thing about you, like I did. Like, hey, this is just a good dude, man.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you're making movies, if you were a elementary school teacher, to me it doesn't really matter. I like hang out with you. You know what I mean? Because you're that kind of guy.
Right on,
but
man.
that's probably been a characteristic that has drawn people to you, so that when you then say, hey, I've got this concept or idea, or I want to create this, you have people that are, they're willing to come on board with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that.
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's something that I have innately. And here's what I mean by that. Someone asked me the other day, they said, hey, Bentley, when you were coming up, were you ever bullied? And I said, I had to think about it for a minute and go, no, I was friends with the bullies. They accepted me. They loved me. And I don't know why. I don't know what it was. Of course, I didn't push the button and make them bully me. But for whatever reason, they would always go, leave him alone. He's all right. He's cool. And I think it was just the demeanor that I had. And, I didn't agitate people. I knew when to kind of keep my mouth closed and just kind of go along with the program. And so, and I say that to say that I've used that to move into my life, to where people just kind of gravitate towards me. And with Jamie, for instance, with Jamie Foxx, I meet Jamie Foxx, and my first impression was that he didn't like me. I literally thought that he didn't like me until my agent called me and said, what did you say to him? What did you do? And I said, I know I probably screwed up. And he goes, no, they want you back. They want you to go back to Warner Brothers right now. Jamie wants to have a one-on-one with you because he was impressed with the conversation that you guys had over lunch today. Well, he was so quiet. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And when I went to sit down with him, he said, look, man, I think we can do something big together. Roughly around the same age. I think I'm a year older. And he said, look, I got this idea. We can do a TV series. And with everything that you're doing over there with Martin and everybody else you've worked with, if you can apply that to what I'm doing, I think we can make some magic. And we did 100 episodes of TV together.
Wow. How about that?
Yeah.
So you bring up Jamie Foxx, and obviously he's very prominent and he's had great success. But I've been around a lot of talented people in different walks of life. And he's probably one of the most talented people I've ever been around. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. We're at Nobu up in Malibu, and there's a bunch of us around a table there. And, it's 6 or 8 of us. We're just having dinner and having a good, fun time. And he starts going into Jamie Foxx. All of a sudden, he's imitating LeBron. He stands up and starts walking like LeBron, talking like LeBron. Next thing you know, he's talking like Shaq. Next thing you know, and we're just sitting Nobu at dinner. I mean, we're just having, it's just us. Like, and you could see people around the restaurant, and they're all looking like, and obviously they know who he is. But he's just, it's like, and then I played pickleball with him, a number of times. But, I don't know for you. I mean, and you've worked with talented people. You've worked with a ton of talented people, but he's got to be one of the most interesting dudes to work with.
By far, Jamie Foxx is the most talented person that I've ever met. I've learned so much from him in storytelling, and what I mean by that, you've experienced it already. The way he'll pitch a movie and make you feel like you're watching the movie, because he's not going to just tell you the story. He's going into character.
Yes, he does.
He's going to do the sound effects. He's going to say the helicopter landed. And he's going to really make you believe that he knows exactly every nuance of what he's talking about. And then the simple fact that his musical genius is off the chain. I mean, the guy can play instruments. He's a bit of a savant in some ways, because you can be having a conversation with Jamie and you're looking him in his eye and you realize that he's checked out of the conversation, and then you're going, where did he go? And then he'll get up. Like, for instance, I was talking to him one day, and he's nodding his head, and then he just gets up and he goes, excuse me, and he walks over to his keyboard. And he just starts playing this beautiful melody. And he starts singing it. And he doesn't know all the words, but he's kind of singing it. And then he stopped and he said, I wish somebody would have filmed that. I'm sorry, man. And where were you saying? And then he just came back.
How about that?
And I was like, Fox, where'd you go? he's a real interesting guy. Another time I was with Jamie, and we're talking about some storylines. And he gets up and he walks out of the room while we're in the middle of a meeting. And the next thing I know, I look out the window and I see a gray Mercedes driving down the street. I said to his manager, I think Fox just left. And he goes, yeah, he does that kind of stuff. He comes back 30 minutes later. I'm getting ready to leave because I'm like, okay, the meeting's over. He comes back and he's got all these bags of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And he goes, there was something missing from the meeting. I didn't feed you, and I said, well, you didn't want to ask what we want. He goes, I covered everything. Just go ahead and eat. So that's what you deal with when you're dealing with these ultra creative people. Yeah. Their minds work a different way, but he's a sweetheart of a guy, and he really has a lot of respect for me, and vice versa.
Yeah. And he's a good pickleball player too. I've played with him.
I haven't played him yet.
I've played with him. He's not bad, but he's just one of those guys. He's just so interesting, and the times I've been around him, it's almost mesmerizing.
Yeah,
because you're almost waiting for the next what's going to come, because his mind just works like that. So, tell me about some other guys, and then you've had this like Martin, obviously really talented man, and
I've got
quick,
a chance.
very quick in his mind. Quick.
Martin's superpower, in my opinion, was his physical ability to do comedy and tell stories. He was like, he did the same thing that Lucille Ball was able to do, utilize that physicality to really drive his points home. And if you came on stage with Martin, you better be ready to play, because it was like he was going to try to break you. He was going to try to break your soul. Like, don't come in here unless you're ready to. It was like a jousting match, And so it was great working with Martin and getting to know him. And then our relationship is different than others. I mean, we're literally like family members. Mm-hmm. My kids are best friends with his kids since the crib, and we live less than a mile away from each other. And it's a real solid friendship. I've never asked him for anything, and he's never asked me for anything other than just be there when I need you and stuff like that. But I've got an opportunity to work with some giants. I got an opportunity to work with Eddie Murphy on several occasions, and writing and stuff like that. I got a chance to work with, again, the entire Wayans family, from Keenan Ivory Wayans, who was one of my mentors in the business. And I learned a lot about the craft by watching him. But what I really learned about the craft from Keenan was the fact that he was so laser focused when it came to writing these scripts. I was kind of, unorganized, didn't really know what I was doing. But here I see this young man that's taking all of his Saturdays and Sundays and sitting down at his kitchen table with a typewriter, and he's going in and he's throwing stuff out. That didn't work. And he's, testing himself to be better and better and better. And so I got a chance to work with him. And so from, just from those experiences, I've pretty much worked with everybody that I would want to work with. There's a few people that I go, who would I like to have a picture with that I've worked with? I never got a chance to meet Michael Jackson, so I missed that opportunity. I've never worked with Denzel. I like to work with Denzel. I work with Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is hysterical. Yeah. And through the whole In Living Color, when I was somewhat interning over there. And so I've got a chance to work with some juggernauts, man, some real solid individuals.
Talent.
Yeah.
Big time talent.
Yeah, man.
When you're creating a show, and you mentioned earlier, like with Jamie, you guys created and started talking about, creating a show. I'm going to guess, this is a guess, that there's probably a little bit of you, like you're excited, but you might go home and put your head on the pillow and be like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Like I'm not coaching on the little league team. I'm now coaching in the NBA, and I've got to play. I got to be good. Like there's probably some nervousness, maybe you're anxious. You're like, man, I want to get this done right, but man, I don't want to screw this up either. But you're talk to me about that.
Yeah, man, bit. Guaranteed. I mean, the thing is, I've had several of those. Oh God, what did I stick my foot into? But then I try not to focus on it because then I'm gonna overthink it. So then it's like, okay, we're playing a role here. Let's just go all the way in. Let's. If I don't know it, I'm gonna act like I know it. I'm gonna play the role of the showrunner, the creative guy. I learned a whole lot about being a showrunner in television just by watching the showrunners that I worked under. So when I was doing Martin, when we first started, I wasn't the showrunner yet. And there was a guy by the name of John Bowman, who was one of the creators of Martin. And John was a very quirky guy. He was I think he was a Harvard School graduate. He was a Lampoon guy that did In Living Color and Saturday Night Live. And I liked John, and for whatever reason, he took me under his wing, and he would say, no, you're not going over there at lunch. I need you in my office. And I'm going, no, I'm going to hang out with you. No, you can stay. I want to show you something. And he took a special interest in me, and I watched him in the writer's room, how he interacted with the other writers. And I wanted to be like John in the room. The way he would eat his food, the stuff he would order, and John had this funny thing that he would do that everyone hated, including me, but it was so funny. If you had fries or something on the table, he would just reach in your fries and just eat, and he would sit there and pull his gum out of his mouth while he was thinking. But what I learned from him was that I realized he wasn't the funniest person in the room, but he was a great coach. He was the great guy that could see it before it happened and go, that's it right there. That's it. He knew when he heard it, that's the joke, let's go with that. And so it encouraged me to be more of a guy in the room that would pitch jokes and throw things out. And even if I knew they were bad jokes, I'm still gonna be vocal about it. And so I emulated John when I got the shot to be the showrunner of Martin. I just sat there and said, what would John do? Nope, that's not the way we're going to do it. No, I don't like that. That's funny. Let's go with that. And I found myself playing this role until it became a reality.
That great.
Yeah, man.
How hard, Bentley, is it when you're doing shows? I would guess comedy is hard. People don't realize, like, telling a joke or picking a joke or finding it or figuring out what's funny. And I know you have talented people. That some of that's impromptu too. Like they can take it and make it into something. You mentioned Jim Carrey. I can imagine you just kind of push a button and let him go because he's just there's no telling what. But comedy, is comedy difficult in that regard a little bit? As far as I'm sure everything's difficult. That's probably not a great question, but the comedy part.
comedy is only difficult if you're dealing with unfunny people. Now, I mean, I have literally worked with people, and I'm going, I know this script is funny, but it's not landing. What's going on here? I think it is harder than drama because the reality of it is, I think our lives are dramatic. I think in real life, we deal with drama all the time, from family issues to just anything, you know. But comedy, now you have to find the silver lining in something that may not be so funny. And if you have a funny person that's driving it, you're gonna get comedy gold. I think everything's funny. I really do. I think from death to, I mean, I really do. I can find comedy in just about every tragedy and everything. And I think that that's a gift because I don't take life that serious, man. Right. And so writing jokes and writing scenarios and stuff like that are just the things that we say in our heads all the time that we're afraid to talk about. I just put it on paper and it's funny, you know? So I don't think it's very difficult. I just think that it's how do you capture it and put it in a bottle and sell it to somebody? How do you do that? And again, when you have uber talented people like Martin and Jamie and Eddie and so many others, you can't help but to find the comedy because like Eddie told me one time, and this is a very interesting story. Eddie told me, hey man, don't write me funny. Just write it. I'll find the funny in it. Wow. And I was like, yeah, but if you don't try to write me as this funny, jovial guy. Right. Just write it straight and make sure that it's a funny scenario. I'll find the funny and paint the picture. And at first I was a little bit insulted by that, but then I was like, I understood what he meant after a while. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's like I refer, my kids get frustrated because I always talk about coaching. And I say, well, it's like in coaching. And they're like, Dad, I'm not one of your players. But when I refer back to coaching times, when you have a great player, sometimes I got to let him play. I mean, I have to let him play and let him make mistakes and let him go because sometimes a great player, you know, we as coaches kind of harness it. All of a sudden, we handcuff them somewhat rather than just, man, you be you, go do.
Yeah.
And give you the freedom to do that. And sometimes that's what brings out some of the greatness in athletes.
Yeah.
Because they're allowed, then all of a sudden a coach allows them. Where they may be in one system where they're not allowed, maybe they're a little bit more restricted, and all of a sudden they get into another system, and all of a sudden we watch them on TV and they're playing with another team and they're all of a sudden blossoming like, wow, what happened?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just letting them be them.
Yeah, you know what's funny, Mark? I was shooting a show just last night, and I remember an actress came up to me and she says, hey, do you mind if I change this line? Because I want to say it like this. I said, is it funny? And she said, well, I think it'll be funnier. I said, well, then don't ask, just do it. And she says, well, I know I work with some directors that are really, really stringent about the words and stuff like that. I'm going, if you can make it funnier than what I put in front of you, by all means do it, because I got to let you be the best that you can be. I hired you for a reason, not to handcuff you, but I hired you so that you can take this moment and milk the hell out of it and give me the best comedy chunks that I could possibly imagine. So I'm like you. I believe you gotta let them take their gloves off, and you gotta let them be the best that they can be. And that's why you bring in people that you know can perform for you.
Bentley, how difficult has it been recently, and maybe the last couple years, 5 years, with all of, you've had a writer's strike, you've had COVID, which changed the game probably a little bit, you've got more streaming going on now. You know, when I grew up, when I was young, we ate dinner. After dinner, we sat down, and there was only a handful of channels, and we watched shows on television, whatever came on at 7 o'clock and 7:30 and 8, and that's what we did. And my mom graded paper. She was an elementary school teacher. But now it's just so different. There's so many streaming. And so for you, how has all of that, because you got to still be you got to still be successful and relevant, and I'm sure you have to adapt and change a little bit with how the industry is changing.
Yeah, I mean, relevance is definitely at the forefront. And I think with all the social media, where it's an even playing field, we can be relevant now. You got Instagram, and I don't even know how many followers I got, but I know it's in the close to 100,000 or so of followers, and so people know what you're doing. Family, friends, different people, and fans, and people of interest can tap in with what you're doing on a daily. It's very important, and I think that adds to what it is to keep your career going, because I still get people coming to me talking about the old Martin episodes, and I'm still seeing clips of Martin and I'm going, wow, this stuff is still out here around 30 plus years later. But it was like we did something right. And I think that now with all the streaming, the business changed tremendously. Again, you just mentioned, I know when I was a kid, it was just Channel 2, 4, and 7.
That's all we had.
That's it. And a couple of local stations, but for the most part, that was it. And the lion's share of people would watch those 3 networks. Well, now there's hundreds of channels to pick from, and the new fast channels, the free advertised television. It's a whole different game. But I do think that it has made it better for content creators. The difference is you can't make as much money as we did back in those days because it's splintered now.
Right.
So it's like back in those days, it was nothing to make a staff writer to start making almost first level NBA player money. You know what I mean? Well, it's not like that anymore. And now people are doing non-union things and stuff like that because there's the big studios aren't paying those contracts like they used to. So now different people, like even with myself and other independent content creators, they're coming into the game now going, okay, well, I need to make a show. I'm like, well, get your iPhone and just shoot a show. What are you talking about? With an iPhone, I'm like, why not? It's a camera, right? I mean, we're finally at the point to where it feels like the old days of celebrities, it's going away because now anybody can be a celebrity. Anybody can create their own content. Now, how do they distribute it? Well, that's a whole different animal. You can go through YouTube, you can go through Tubi, you can go through so many different areas that didn't exist back in the day. So for that reason, it's gotten better for the content creation as a whole, but it's kind of killed the mystique of the Hollywood stars and the Hollywood business, because now people are making their shows and podcasts, and they're doing it their own way and taking control of their destiny.
It's amazing how that's changed. Have you found that our actors, Bentley, are they choosing? I'm a novice here, but I do love movies, man. I'm a movie guy, TV show guy. But anyway, it doesn't seem like the big blockbuster movies. It's like more people are doing shows and different shows on Peacock and Paramount and this and that and Hulu and all the different things out there. But are you finding that a lot of the actors are drifting more towards those shows, or there's not as many of the big blockbusters? I mean, there's a Tom Cruise, obviously. He's just, mega stars. But a lot of the other ones?
What I'm finding is that it's all about IP, intellectual property that exists. So these studios are not taking the chances anymore with someone coming in with a new original idea. Now they're going, well, what IP do we own currently that we took a bet on years ago? And we know that if we throw another Beverly Hills Cop 4 out there, the branding of it is already going to sell itself, or Bad Boys 4 or The Best Man 3, or these different movies that have already existed. That's what I'm starting to find, that the studios are leaning in that direction, and they're going with the action adventures, the Marvel characters and stuff like that they know. And to me, that's a bit of a sad thing, because there's really no real creativity happening right now except for the independents. The big studios have checked out. They're like, nope, we're taking safe bets, and we're only going to do animation because we know that works. We know that superheroes work. We know that horror works. But as far as just a regular rom-com, it's very tough getting a rom-com made these days unless you do it yourself.
When you were coming up, Bentley, let's go back, 20 years, 30 years probably. But when you're coming up, as a minority in this industry, were there times where you kind of maybe looked out there and said, whew, this is going to be hard. There's not many opportunities maybe for me, as a minority.
Yeah.
Did you feel that and sense
hell
that?
Yeah, definitely. Especially from the acting perspective. That's the reason why I made a decision early on that, okay, this acting thing is only going to take me so far because it's too much competition out here. You got all the rappers that are, they're coming in now, and all the stand-up comics are coming in now, and they're getting the roles. And there's only a certain amount of roles that pop up for African Americans, right? And so I was like, that's too convoluted there. Let me figure out something else. And so jumping into the writing, I've experienced a lot of the same, but there's more opportunities in writing than there are in the acting for minorities. It's been a tough road, but I don't have one of those hard luck stories where I can go, oh man, I struggled to sacks of rocks on my back to get. No, it wasn't that. It was I just think that there's not enough outlets that really distribute African American themed shows, or should I just say markets that are underserved. There's not a lot of outlets for that. So you're still competing to get your stuff out there. And I think the end all, the resolve to it all is we have to start our own networks and we have to start our own distribution outlets. So then we don't have that problem. Right. I've hit some brick walls, but not like some of my friends. Some people that I know, they're like, hey man, I'm out of the business. I can't do that anymore. And I've wanted to throw the hat in a few times. Matter of fact, I threw the hat in around 2006, and I was like, I guess I'm done with the entertainment industry. And I started doing real estate, and I started doing really well with the real estate, and I started selling houses to comedians that I know. As a matter of fact, I sold, my brother and I sold Kevin Hart his very first house. And then the market tanked. And I was like, oh boy. Now what do we do? So I had to figure out how to go back into the industry, but now the industry's not looking for me. Now I'm considered a relic to the studios. I don't really have anything to offer to them, but I knew that if I could do it myself and take everything that I learned from quote unquote the Warner Brothers University or the Fox University and figure out how to construct my own shows on a budget and call in favors and get things done, there's still a market for what I do. And I started doing that in 2009, and here we are 15 years later, and it couldn't be better. Did
you find, though, at times there were people that kind of wanted to pigeonhole you into something because you're a minority? Like you mentioned earlier, there was as an actor, I want you to play the basketball player because you're 6'4". Wait a minute, I want to play the serious guy over here. Why do I have to be the basketball player?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, literally, I got all the ball player roles. You got to get the gangbanger roles. You got to get all the you definitely have those situations where they pigeonhole you into certain things because that's what they see you doing. And as a performer, you go, okay, well, if that's the only work that's out there, I got to do what I got to do to eat, right? Right. But I didn't have terrible experiences. Not like some of the ones I've heard. I mean, literally. I think, like I said, I abandoned ship so quick and got into the writer's room that I stopped feeling that. I was like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm over here. And I was able to navigate my way around the writer's room and get in with these different producers and showrunners and stuff like that. And like I said, for whatever reason, I could make them laugh, but I also knew my place when it was time to shut up and just listen and just learn and take it all in and stuff like that. But I've had my set of challenges. I've never been fired from a job, but I've had shows that were canceled really quick and stuff like that. But like I said, I'm doing it my own way now because of the independent spirit. That's the way to go. That does not mean that if Hollywood calls that I won't show up. They called me to do another show for Jamie Foxx called Dad Stop Embarrassing Me on Netflix. And Jamie said, "You want to do it?" I said, "How much?" He said, he threw out a number. I said, "Hell yeah, I'm doing it." So I like to straddle both, you know.
How about this one? So to for all of us in life, as we have success and you keep doing amazing things, a lot of it's the resolve, the ambition, the competitive spirit, the the wherewithal to stay after it, which you probably have all of those characteristics because you have to be where you are. Where did that come from? Parents? Were there other people in your lives? Teachers? Like where would that kind of? Because like all of us too, we get knocked down. I mean, we get told no. We told you're not good enough, or hey, we don't want you, or you're not going to do this, and you kind of keep fighting through.
Yeah, man. My dad was an independent spirit. He was a self-made man. Again, I don't have the hard luck story. Man, we grew up in the hood by the train tracks. My father drove Lincoln Continentals and shit like that. We were living pretty high on the hog for what it was, Right. And so he was a very ambitious guy. He always had his own office. He always had his clients. I got to get to my clients. I didn't even know what a client was. And so, but to see that, I never saw my dad work for anybody. I only saw him go to his office, do real estate deals, and we went on vacations, and it was a pretty posh lifestyle, right? So so watching him and the way that he interacted with people, it was crazy to see my father walk into a bank, and he would just put his hand up, and he'd walk right up to the front of the line, back past people, and I was like, what kind of charm does this guy have, right? Yeah. But just watching an ambitious dad that got up early every morning and looked good, put on his suit and tie, and had on the best smelling cologne, and it just made you want to go, that's what I got to do. Now, he wasn't the proverbial dad that would go out in the backyard and throw a football with you or anything like that. He ain't had that in him. Now, I looked at it like, my dad's too important. He ain't got time for that. These other kids' fathers are bums, that are helping, they're throwing balls. But that was my perspective of things at that point in time. My dad is a guy that's after it. He's going after that money. I literally will watch my dad because he had a bunch of rental properties. Now, he probably wasn't the best landlord. He would. My dad would probably take a payment of a VCR for the rent and say, here, you guys figure that out. I got this. They didn't have the money, but I took the VCR. And he would bring in paper bags of money and say, count that money. And whoever gets the closest without making an error, I give you $20. And me and my sister, we'd be out there trying to count the money up and stuff like that, stacking it in little neat stacks for him. But it was just a great exercise for what was to come for me by watching this dynamic guy who was very complicated guy. He wasn't a very, we never could really get too close to my dad. We never really knew what made him tick until I became an adult and understood, oh, now I see who this guy is, self-made man, didn't have parents, it was a real hard luck story, but he persevered. And so for me, that's the key. It's all about the perseverance. You're sitting there going, I have an idea, and I'm not stepping off of my idea until I complete the task. I gotta complete it. And so that's always been my mindset. I'm not a quitter. I won't quit. You can punch me so many times, and you can knock me down, but then I'll figure out a way to do the rope-a-dope and then come out swinging. You know what I mean? So it's definitely my dad. But that was the driving force to everything that I've done.
That's so good. And your children are involved in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Did you ever discourage that, or did you encourage it, or did it just kind of they naturally? And what's your thoughts on? I mean, obviously they're doing well, and they're your children, and they're in it.
Yeah.
But a little bit about how that with your children?
Yeah, I definitely discouraged it because because as a parent, you don't want your kid to go through a hard luck, situation. You don't want them to have to deal with tough times and stuff like that. So we try to prevent them from feeling hurt, and a lot of times we kind of mess them up by doing that too, because they need to feel it. But what we want to do is go, no, we want to make a nice little lofty life for you. And, why don't you go be a lawyer? Why don't you? And they're like, I don't want to do that. You don't do that. I want to do what you do. And you're like, yeah, but, it's a lot of competition and you have to learn because you're going to get a lot of no's. And they're like, yeah, that's what you did. That's what we want to do. So once I realized that me trying to discourage them was not happening, they weren't going for that. My son said to me, I know you're doing this show and I know I have to audition, but I want to try to audition for the role. And so I said, you don't have any acting ability or any experience here. But I gave him an opportunity and he beat out all the other kids and he did 8 seasons of a series with me, right? And then my daughter, who I call her the silent assassin, she came in and started writing these scripts for me, and I would go, who wrote this? And she goes, me. And I would go, but where did you learn this? I guess I didn't realize. I mean, I got scripts laying all over the house. She's probably reading them, And so to bring them into the business, now I encourage it. And I definitely try to use my relationships to help them further their careers and hooking them up with people. I guess it's the same as LeBron and Bronny.
That's right.
I guess.
Nothing wrong with that.
I guess,
It's interesting when because when I coached, my children played sports. And so people would ask me, I had 4 boys, 1 daughter, but they would, how good is your son? I had a son played football at Stanford, and then another one played Division I basketball. And they would say, well, how good is he? And I'd always say, well, it's hard because I'm the dad.
Right.
And I remember coaching, and I used to tell parents sometimes, because every parent thought their kid was, the kid thought they were Michael Jordan, the parents thought they were better. That was the line. But it's so hard to evaluate your own child because it's your child. You love them and you look at it a little differently. Has that been hard for you sometimes to maybe evaluate how good they are at this because they're your children?
I think that with my son, I think that he's a guy that hasn't had to put a lot of effort into anything yet. He's not as driven as I was or my daughter is, but then I have to think about it. He grew up in Encino on a 2-acre lot at a 9,000 square foot house. It's a different lifestyle for him. He doesn't know that struggle. However, my daughter, she's a beast. She's a trip because she just has this thing where she's not interested in the outside world. She'll sit in her bedroom and come up with these scripts, and she's taught herself how to play the piano by YouTube, and she's a real creative. And I always tell her, I say, you're better than me at your age. You're way better than I was. So, I think, just watching, like you said, everybody thinks that their kids are special. But I really think that she's very special in the whole scheme of things when it comes to creating content, not just as an actor or an actress. I remember I told my daughter one time, I said, look, what do you want to do? She says, I want to be an actress. And I made her very angry because I said, is that it? And she says, what do you mean, is that it? I said, you won't make it if that's all you want to do. If that's all your ambition is, it's going to be, you got too much competition. It's going to be very hard. Why not look at being a producer? Because when you're producing, you can hire yourself as an actress. Now you're in control of it all. And she didn't want to hear that, but I think she realized that I was telling the truth and giving it to her, no chaser. And so now she's gone on to, create a sketch show that she sold. She's worked for Disney for the last 5 years, and she's not doing it under me so much anymore because she's found her own lane. And I think that once the industry pays attention to her, oh man, she's out of here, man. She's out of here.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Is there anything, Bentley, that you haven't done that you'd look out there and say, boy, I'd really like to do this project or this one, or Is there something out there that, man, that would just really, really get your heart started? Say, boy, I want to create this or that. I don't want to steal anything if you've got stuff privately you're working on, but is there something like that? Maybe documentaries or movies or something that you aspire to do?
Yeah, you know what? I feel like I'm somewhat in a box right now doing these sitcoms. I feel like I'm, one of my friends called me the sitcom guru because I've, produced and or directed or written probably over 600 or 700 episodes of television, right? Wow. But I feel like that's not a challenge to me anymore. That's kind of low-hanging fruit. I want to, I definitely want to direct a feature film, so that I can get some notoriety with that. My thing is I want to travel the world, but I want to travel the world making content. If that makes any sense. I want to be able to figure out how can I travel, but then take my talent and do shows and or movies in different countries or different cities, just to simplify it, and just do it like that. So I think that's what I really want to do. I'm entering into the speaking circuit now, the motivational speaking circuit and or inspirational speaking, whatever you want to call it. I really like that idea of traveling around, and I'm great pals with Magic Johnson, and I love what he's been able to do with his career, and he's always at some corporate event, giving some sort of, some sort of speech or something like that. I love that about what he does. And so I really want to jump into that arena in a major way. And to your point, I haven't done a documentary. There's a few ideas that have popped up and that have been pitched to me that I want to go, but I don't know who's buying documentaries because that's not my lane, or it hasn't been my lane. But the only way that I'm going to get a chance to do that is I got to step out on faith and just do it. Because right now, I will admit, I take the safe route. I'm going, they want a comedy, I got that. Let's put together this sitcom and let's go. You know what I mean? The good thing is people are still ordering those shows from me. So I'm constantly able to make a buck or two and take care of my bottom line. But I am ready to really challenge myself at a different level.
Who of the actors when you were younger, and you worked with so many talented people, but who were some of the guys that maybe are guys or gals that were older that you kind of looked up and just they inspired you? Like, man, this guy or this girl, boy, that made something move in me differently. Who would those people have been? I
mean, I would have to say single-handedly Eddie Murphy, because from before I even saw Eddie's face on Saturday Night Live, he had an album that he had put out, and I heard it, and that was the days when we would listen to comedy albums and sit around the record player listening to that, and I felt like I could relate to a guy who was not too much older than me. And he was kind of in a lane of his own. It was like Richard Pryor, and now the baton has been handed to Eddie Murphy. Right. And Eddie was fun, and he was talking about young, silly things and stuff like that. And I saw him become a star in his own right, and I was like, wow, he's the example. That's the blueprint. And I think that not only me, I think that all the other especially like the black comics and stuff like that, they all have stolen that ideology from Eddie, from Martin to Cedric to you name it. I mean, Cat Williams. I mean, they're all doing Eddie. They're all doing a version of what Eddie was able to do, and he's the blueprint. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Eddie was really my inspiration. Yeah. All the way around. As far as from the writing side, there's a woman by the name of Yvette Lee Bowser who created shows like, let's just use Living Single as one of them. And when I first met Yvette, she said to me, I was at In Living Color and I met her in the green room and I said, hey Yvette, what do you do for a living? She says, I'm a television writer. And it was like, writer. It sounded so cool to me, and I was going, nobody in my neighborhood's a writer. That's what I want to do. That sounds cool, right? Yeah. That's a cool thing to do. And so she was the person that made me go, okay, maybe I should go down that road. And then there was a movie, and I don't know if you remember this movie years ago called Cooley High. Do you remember Cooley High?
Absolutely.
And in the movie, one of the main characters, Preach, he wanted to go to Hollywood to be a writer. And I just remember that as a kid going, what is that? What is that? And so, those were like the inspiring things that made me want to do something. I've always been attracted to popular things, popular people. I always hung with the coolest people in school. I always wanted to be around the popular guys, and because then you'd get the the crumbs of anything that was presented to you. So I knew I wanted to do something of importance all along. I just didn't know what it was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Special.
Yeah.
So I'm a young person coming up, and I come and I say, Bentley, man, I want to get in this industry, man. I want to do it, and but I need some advice, man. I need some advice, like where do I go and how do I do this, and what do you think, man? What would you tell a young person that's like, man, I'm aspiring to, I want to be like you?
Easy answer. Come work for me for free, or work for somebody like me. Somebody else that's doing it as well. Offer your services for free, and you'd be surprised what will happen. I came into the business offering my services for free, working for Robert Townsend on his movie, and from that experience, I got into SAG, and then I was able to build it out on my own. I would have to say, you can. No one's going to turn down free. Mm-hmm. If you're offering your services for free, now I get a chance to see what you can and cannot do and how focused and dedicated you are, because a lot of people say what they want, and I'm going, no, you don't. That's just a good idea, but it's not really what you want, because if you really wanted it, you'd be doing it. So you get a chance to really, really see somebody show and prove when they come to work for you for free. There was this kid who works on and off with me right now, this kid named Julian. I met him in Orlando, Florida at a conference. I was speaking at a conference, and he kept raising his hand to the point of almost being annoying. So then I was like, look, after I finish, I'll give you some time. And so after I finished, I sat down with him. I said, what is it that you want to do? He said, I want to do what you do. I said, where do you live? He said, I live here in Orlando. I said, it's not going to work. You want to do what I do, come to LA.
That's it.
Then I'll know you're serious. He shows up in LA about 6 months later, and it was astonishing. I pulled into my parking space, and I see this kid taking out the garbage at my studio. And I'm looking going, is that Julian? So I said, hey, Julian, what's going on, man? He goes, excuse me, I can't talk to you right now, I'm working. He just found a niche for himself. He just came in and he became a PA, a production assistant, and he didn't ask for any money. He worked for me for free for about a year. Of course, I fed him and stuff like that. But after a while, I was like, hey, Julian, you want to take a stab at this script? And he started writing scripts for me. Now he writes scripts. Wow. And so many other kids that I've given that same opportunity because they did exactly what I said. They made the move, number one. And I would say, you got to be in a market that makes sense. It makes sense in Atlanta, Georgia. It makes sense in LA, New York, somewhat. New York is more so the theaters and stuff like that. But television and film, you got to be in a place that really supports that. You know what I mean? But now it's spreading out. 50 Cent just bought a studio in New Orleans. Cat Williams, I just saw Cat Williams. He came by my studio about 4 or 5 days ago, and he apparently bought a Air Force base somewhere in Alabama. So I don't know what it is, but he's going to make it into a studio. Hopefully it works for him. But I mean, people are getting innovative now, and starting their own thing. But it starts with volunteering your time with no question about it.
Yeah. Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. Well, Bentley, this has been amazing. And I can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you, man. Like what you're doing, kind of the career you've carved, and how you help other people, and how good you are at it. So
thank you, man.
Thank you for coming.
This is awesome.
And we've had a good time, and I'm going to see you on the stage, man. You're going to be doing some keynote speaking. It's going to be unbelievable, and you're going to be inspiring and motivating all kind of people.
Yeah,
I got no doubt.
You are good at it, too. You should do it, too. We should go into business together. But no, definitely, man. I appreciate it.
Well, good. Thank you, Bentley.
Thank you, man.